The Women's Aid Collective WACOL on Tuesday convened a high-level panel discussion at the 65th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, held at the International Conference Center, Enugu. The session themed Status of Women in Nigeria, 30 Years Post-Beijing World Conference on Women.
It is important to say that the objective of this panel is that the panel wants to conduct a self-taking of the status of women in Nigeria in relation to state responsibility under international and international law. How far is the change with them? Assess the extent of implementation of all critical areas of concern, identifying areas that are doing well, what has worked well, and where we are.
Examined Nigeria's progress in advancing women's rights since the landmark 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Distinguished diplomats, academics, and activists were on the panel. Among them were Mrs. Gil Lever Obe, Deputy High Commissioner of the British High Commission in Abuja, Mr. Ibrahim Nuruddin, representing UN Women Nigeria, Professor Ebenezer Durojaye of the University of Pretoria, human rights activist Aisha Yesufu, Professor Obijiofo Ajinam of UNESCO MGREP, New Delhi, and Mr. Ugochukwu Ogbonna, Principal Counsel at WACOL. The session was moderated by Professor Joy Ngozi Zilo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Founding Director of WACOL. In her remarks, Mrs. Gitlever noted Nigeria's slow progress on gender equality. She lamented that women occupy only 20 out of the 469 seats in the National Assembly despite 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. Professor Durojaye, speaking on behalf of the UN Women, highlighted gains in women's economic participation, with labor force involvement rising to 58% in 2024. However, he stressed that poverty and high maternal mortality still disproportionately affects Nigerian women.
Just last year, the AU also adopted a very, very critical instrument, and as we have been told, one of the critical elements of Beijing was violence against women, and that action should be taken. So the AU took a very giant step to adopt a convention to end violence against women and girls, which is yet to come into force. But it's a good thing that the AU thought about that and to adopt a specific instrument addressing violence against women. And of course, at the national level, we've talked about the VAP Act, which was a very important and radical instrument. And you also adopted the Health Act, which was also a very important element which addressed some of these challenges facing women. Then at the state level, we have seen some states adopting laws to address widowhood practices, FGM, and the rest. That shows that we are really making progress. And most of these laws were influenced by the Beijing Declaration.
Aisha Yesufu, in her intervention, decried the persistent exclusion of women from political leadership, urging younger women to challenge patriarchal structures and demand equal representation.
When I demand for equality, I'm merely asking for equity of treatment. When I demand for equality, I'm not saying that men should be disinherited. I'm just saying that women have a right to inherit and be inherited from. When I demand for equality, I'm not saying that I'm better than you. I'm just saying that you should not be afraid of who I am. At the end of the day, my demand for equality does not take anything away from you. Why all the bad?
For WACOL, Mr. Ogbonna outlined the organization's work since its founding in 1997, noting that it has handled over 81,000 cases promoting women's rights, justice, and empowerment.
Cases resolved in court, we have over 10,000 cases resolved in court since inception. Cases pending in court, we have over 50 cases pending in court since inception. Cases resolved through mediation, we have over 30,000 cases resolved through mediation since inception. And we have a survivors forum where we keep track of these cases. We are constantly in touch with these clients. ongoing mediation, well over 425 cases currently undergoing mediation in our legal clinic. So cases dropping, these are cases that we do not ordinarily take, but then we make referrals, especially in cases that has to do with landlord and tenant, debt recovery, and even cases that has to do with crime. So on the total, we have 81,475 cases resolved since inception.
The panel called for urgent reforms, including the elimination of discriminatory laws such as Section 55 of the Penal Code, increased women's representation in governance, more funding for grassroots organizations, and intergenerational solidarity among women. Other recommendations includes promoting girls' education, economic empowerment, stronger legal protections for survivors of gender-based violence, and fostering inclusive cultural attitudes through community engagement. The session concluded with a collective call for Nigeria to accelerate the implementation of the 12 critical areas of concern of the Beijing Declaration.
The improving status of women takes a village, and should be collective action. Yes, as non-governmental organizations, they have their role, and I believe they've been doing their fair share of the work, because they are the ones who generally provide legal aid, they are the ones who provide shelter, psychosocial support, they are the ones who advocate for the right, they are the ones who embark on public enlightenment. The non-governmental entities are also the ones who are in the rural communities, whether faith-based organization, whether community organization, whether NGOs or we call it civil society. They are the human rights defenders. They are the women's rights defenders. They are the defenders for children's rights, for the rights of vulnerable and the marginalized. And they are doing a lot in that direction. But all we are saying is that there should be synergy, that the government should also support that effort, and that we should work together as government, as non-governmental, as private sector, in order to achieve in fact, the state responsibility is actually on the government.
Ensuring that progress translates into meaningful change for women and girls across the country. I am Lillian Ezinwa, reporting for Freedom Square TV.